goes to a house and there's a little boy sitting in front, and he talks to the little boy. He says, "Is your mother home?" And he says, "Yeah, she's home." And so he goes to the door and he rings the doorbell. Nobody comes. And he rings the doorbell again and no one comes. He does one more time. Nobody comes to the door. He looks at the kid and says, "You told me your mom was home." And he said, "Yeah, but this isn't my house." Got to ask the right questions. You're called to ask the right. Wow, I'm glad I got some questions. Yay. Okay. Okay. So. I just got to start with this. I don't know who did this, but I love you. Whoever did this is awesome. Thank you. It says, "Why platypus energy?" With a little picture of a platypus. So a couple weeks ago, I was talking about how amazing life is and how perfect things are, and how you can't look at life without realizing that every aspect of it has a touch of the divine, right? And I called up the idea of the platypus because it's such an odd animal. It looks really funny, and it's so beautiful in its quirky, crazy way, right? That you can't not look at a platypus and see the divine. So that's why I said that God's the platypus energy. Okay. All right, so I'm going to look real. I should have brought my glasses out. That's a difference from this year to last year. Okay, so I can do this really quick. The next foundations class is going to start right after Easter. I'm going to be teaching it with our practitioner, Tina Fultz, I think. Correct. Did we say that? Okay. Well, I'm teaching foundations after Easter. That's a good question. Oh, I like this. Oh, that's really good. Okay. It's funny when I recognize handwriting people. Good one. You don't recognize handwriting? Okay. Okay. Okay, yep, we can do that. That's for John. Okay. That's a good one too. Yep. All right, I'm going to try and put a couple of these together. All right, so there's a couple questions about our move here. So there's a couple of process things here. One is, can we please turn up the mic for the practitioners? We'll work on that. Music team, sound team. Okay, we'll do that. So I've got a couple questions about the move in terms of our location and our move. This is where we are. Thank you for this, by the way. So, reminding me to tell you about it. So what we are, right now we are in negotiations with the landlord here to be able to be either released out of our lease or to allow a sublease to come in. So we can't really move forward in finding a location and actually getting a plan to leave until we have that negotiation complete. And I'll be honest, the challenge is the landlord isn't really responsive and we found that historically in the 3 years that we've been here that the landlord hasn't really been as responsive as we would like. So we can't do anything, we can't move forward with anything specific until we have this part done. So our practitioners are in prayer, our practitioners and ministers are in prayer with us, holding the space that this negotiation goes well and we can start to move forward. So I will keep you updated as to that as we go forward. All right, let's see. It will stay into our intention is to stay in the Temecula Valley area, so we are looking Temecula Murrieta, where within this area is where we've been for 20 years that the church has been here, and we're really not going to move very far out of that. So I don't foresee us going up towards Menifee, going up towards Elsinore. We're going to stay in Murrieta, Temecula. That's where our charter is for. That's where we're staying. So just in case, that's the area that we're moving in. So that's the doing this. Okay, so here we go. I got that done, I got that done. Look, I answered like 5 questions already. Okay. All right. I'm just going to start, and we're going to time me, and we're going to go. Okay, so this question says, how do you relate CSLTV and Christianity? So, the Centers for Spiritual Living is our denomination. The philosophy that we study is called the Science of Mind, and the church was originally called the Church of Religious Science. I'm giving you a tiny, quick little history lesson here. And so the Church of Religious Science was the name of our church for so many years, and then because of all the things that we were associated with, people thought we were Scientology, which is a whole different thing, right? I used to say I'm a minister in the Church of Religious Science, and they would say, is that Scientology? And I'd be like, no. And then I'd have to explain it. And so we had a name shift and a name change. That being said, even now there is a debate in our ministerial body of whether or not we are a Christian organization. And my answer to that is that it depends on how you define Christianity, a Christian organization, right? So someone who is a fundamentalist Christian is going to say that we are not Christian. But the teachings of the Science of Mind, the philosophy that Ernest Holmes, the founder of this philosophy, put together, is Christian-based, in that it is based in the teachings of Jesus. It is based in those things. If you have one of those Bibles that has the red letters and all the red parts, that's what our philosophy is based on. It's we believe that, and this combines a couple of questions. I got a couple of questions about Jesus. Our idea of Jesus was that he was, Ernest Holmes says that he was probably the most evolved teacher to come to set foot on this earth. That he was the most enlightened, the most evolved, the most spiritually pure teacher that ever came. But we believe that he came to show us the way. These things and greater shall ye do, he said to us. He came to show us that it's about having the relationship with God, about understanding the divine presence of God, that, and he said, it's not I but the Father that doeth the works, right? So he was saying that it's God through him. And so from the teachings of Jesus, we have learned that he is the greatest example of what we could possibly become. That's the goal, is to walk through the world and love everyone. To walk through the world and support those. To walk through the world without being against anyone. And so we believe that we are Christian philosophy based in the teachings of Jesus. Now, I'll give it to you straight. The sticking points are this. We don't believe that we need to be saved. Now, some people don't like that. From a Christian faith would not like that. Because we believe that we are all divine and that God is through everyone and everything. And so we truly believe that each of us is God-ordained and has that divine touch upon us and is called to this life on purpose. And then it's through that path of becoming who we are that we get to shine our light into the world. And so that's what Jesus did. And so we don't believe that we need to be saved. We believe that by waking up to who we are, by having that direct relationship with the divine, by understanding our spiritual nature, we are already saved. And so that's the rub in that. And the truth is this, we believe in all paths to the divine, right? We believe that there's not one way. If God is expressing itself in its myriad of individuality, right? And we love that, we're not all the same. It would be really boring if we all looked alike and acted alike and were just alike. That would not be fun. You know, that variety makes life, is the spice of life, right? And so that's the truth of all of us. And so, I lost where I was going with that. Because there's so many different ways of expressing, we are going to hear inspiration and we're going to hear wisdom all differently. Different things are going to speak to us. And so the idea is that all of these different religions that have been around for thousands and thousands of years, just because they don't fall into one neat little box, it doesn't mean that they don't have value. It doesn't mean that they don't have wisdom. It doesn't mean that they don't bring you to that same place of God realization. One of the things that I've loved so much in my study is that in my years of study and reading the mystics of all different religions, they all come up with the same ideas. It doesn't matter if it's a Christian mystic or a Kabbalist or a Sufi mystic or any of them, is they come up with the idea that we are all interconnected and that truly it's all about love. Those are the main two messages of all the mystics across the board. And so as we can get in touch with that fact that we are part of something that's greater than we are, and the whole goal is not to overcome something, but to share love and to be in that divine relationship with life, we're on the right path. And so that's our relationship to Christianity. Does that feel like that answer is complete? Anybody? Yeah? Okay, I love this. Yeah, this is a good one. Okay, this is like a deep track. This is great. Okay, so how do you connect or bridge, treat and move your feet, and let go and let God? Okay, so for those of you who might not know what we're talking about, treat and move your feet is a saying that actually comes from the Quakers. And theirs is pray and move your feet, right? And so the way that we pray in religious science is what we call spiritual mind treatment. If you're relatively new here, you'll hear that our prayers are a little bit different than you might hear somewhere else. And our prayers are what we call an affirmative prayer, where we see through what the, knowing that God is all around and is in, through, and as all things, we see through the obstacle, the issue, the pain, the challenge, whatever that is, to the truth that's at the center of it. And we call it forward. Because we know as we declare it, we set our intention to see it, as we know it's there, and we speak it, it comes into being. I gotta take a breath because I'm trying to do so many, I'm going so fast. Okay, cool. So that being said, what I teach often is that in every challenge, a part of God is trying to be born. So in a fight with a loved one, more compassion and understanding is trying to be born. In a financial struggle, the understanding that you are part of the abundance of God is trying to be born out of that. You following me? Right? So what we do is we pray to know the truth, and we do it affirmatively. So that's treatment. Okay? So the treat and move your feet is a statement that's saying that yes, you need to pray, but you gotta get up off your tushy and move, right? We need to let ourselves be open. I used to have a lot of people who would come to me and say, oh, I want a boyfriend so bad. Can you help me get a boyfriend? I'm alone, I'm lonely, I really want a boyfriend, I need a boyfriend. And I'd say, okay, great, let's pray. You're fabulous, you deserve a partner. Let's do that. Okay. And then I'd say, okay, well, what are you going to do next? Well, I'm going to go home and binge watch Outlander season 2. Have some dinner, and, I'm like, okay, well, can you see the problem in that? Yeah, okay. So you need to move your feet and put yourself out there. So when you're online at Starbucks, you don't, like, stick your face in your phone and stay there, You want to be present with life. And it's so easy now to pull ourselves back and not engage with life in so many different ways. So when we say treat and move your feet, we want you to engage with life and what that means for you. I want you to put yourself out there. You can see with trying to manifest a partner how that would be, right? If you want to change your work, if you want to get new work, you're not going to just not look online. Bless you. You're not gonna just go to your job every day and hope that someone's gonna come through the door and say, I'm not doing. Oh God, like an officer and a gentleman, someone's gonna come through and pick you up and carry you romantically to your new job, right? That's not gonna happen unless you put yourself out there and you're open. And what that means is you have to engage with life. See how my brain works? You guys are getting to know me a little bit more now because that's how my brain works. So the idea of treat and move your feet is that we pray to know the truth, but we allow ourselves to be open. Now, let go and let God is this. Let go and let God is kind of the opposite, it feels like, doesn't it? Because at some point, we're trying to do something so hard. You've ever been trying to create something or trying to manifest something or trying to make something happen, and it's just not happening, right? And so when that happens, often we read about the idea of surrender, that we need to just let go and let God take care of it, So I love that these two things are connected because they are. There's no black and white, there's no right and wrong in any of this. Again, it's all about engaging with life. And so in order to bridge these two things, what you need to do is you need to connect with what your intention is, what that desire is. I love to think of it, what the desires of our hearts have been implanted in us by God. And so the things that we're wanting are part of the divine's desire for you. And so getting clear about what that is and setting an intention and moving in that direction. Realizing that you're heading in the right direction. My life bends towards, the arc of my life bends towards awakening. And so we're moving in that direction. And realizing that any one thing that happens along the way is the divine unfoldment. We have to let it happen in its own time. So on some level, you want to stick to that. Hold your truth. Know what it is that you're wanting. Be really clear about where that's coming from. And head in the direction. Knowing that anything that happens along that adventure, anything that happens along that arc of that path, is allowing the divine to reveal to you what it is that you want. And so that's how we balance both of them, right? Get that? And you come to the workshop this afternoon because that'll help you do that. Okay. I need water now. Okay. All right, I did Jesus already. Okay. You guys are great. This is really fun. Okay. Some say suffering is optional. Some say suffering is grace. Is suffering necessary? Okay, let's take a collective breath on this one. Is suffering necessary? That's up to you. I'm sorry, you have to answer that for yourself. Is suffering necessary? Pain is an amazing motivator, right? Pain and suffering is a motivation for us to change. Because, you know, have you ever seen that little cartoon that says, it's a church cartoon, and the pastor standing up in front of the whole congregation, and the congregation's yelling, "We want change!" You know, and then the pastor, in the next scene it says, the pastor says, "Who wants to change?" And everyone's like, "We want change, but we want you to change," is what it's saying, you know. The idea that change in our life is natural, it's part of the unfoldment, right? And so when we are called to change in a way that we aren't comfortable with, we run up against our resistance to it, and that's where suffering happens. One of the things I think that is the hardest thing to deal with in this life is reconciling the life we thought we were going to live with the life that we are living. One of the core challenges that I see over and over and over again is having to put into perspective the fact that I thought it was going to be one way, and this is what I'm ending up with. And when I hold on to this as how it's supposed to be, remember there's some keywords here that we should remind ourselves as red flags. Whenever there's a supposed to, it's supposed to be like that, you know, you realize you're going in the wrong direction. Because that's our attachment and our desire for that is not, is so tying us to a place that doesn't exist, and so we can't accept the blessing of what is, right? So there's all of these books and philosophies, the loving what is, what's in the way is the way, all of those books and philosophies and ideas are there to support us in realizing that we need to be present where we are, and we start from there. Ernest Holmes says you can create anything that you want in your life, but you need to start where you are. And in order to start where you are, you need to be conscious of where you are. The things that you love about your life right now, the things that you don't love about your life right now, the things that you've been carrying, that you, throughout your life, that you've maybe not been able to forgive, let go of, maybe some past regrets, maybe some challenges from the past that were so traumatic that you can't process through them or step through them. Those are the things that will hold you back from allowing what is in your life to be the blessing rather than what you want it to be like. That's suffering. Suffering is not being able to be present. Suffering is not letting go of how things should be. And what I think is that suffering is optional when you're awake to that, you can and willing to take a step in a different direction. When you're willing to say enough is enough, I'm willing to change a little bit. I'm willing to let go of this a little bit. Because when you can do that, you can start to see the blessings that are alive in your life right now that maybe you don't see because you're so focused on what isn't there. See what I mean? When we're focused on what isn't in our life, we don't see the good things there. And what we put our attention on expands. And so when we see that I don't have the bank account that I wanted, I don't have the lover that I wanted, I don't have the house that I wanted, I don't have the job that I wanted, all you see is you have nothing. But the fact is that you're completely supported and you have wonderful friends and opportunities in front of you. You've got an amazing path that you could step onto that would bring great fulfillment and great joy. Maybe the person that's in your life that doesn't look like the prince that you thought it was going to look like is still sitting right there. And it could be the great love of your life, but you thought he was going to look different, or whatever. But that happens in so many different ways in our lives. And it's when we can start to be present and allow to be what is, then we can start to create from there. Okay, so suffering is optional. You just need to make your decision on how much suffering you're willing to take. People are very strong. I've seen a lot. So your desire for your ability to to experience pain versus your desire to change, your willingness to change. That's what the fight is. That's what the fight is. Okay? Does that sound good? Yeah? Good? Okay. Okay, we do believe that God is Jesus' Father. We believe that God is everyone's, the creator of all people and all humans everywhere. So we do believe in the divine as our divine creator. We often call it Father, Mother, God, because we believe that it's that essence and presence. It's not a person. It's not a persona. It's a wisdom and an essence. It's the creative force that has brought forth the universe. It's the thing that started the Big Bang. It's the thing that brought forth all of life, and it's infused in all of life and all that is. And so that's what we believe about God. All right, we're going to take a sip on this one, and then we're going to go. This is a good one. Okay. I don't even have to pull out my signs of mind yet. I brought it just in case it's my working one. All right, so can you remind us again what tools are available to us in our spiritual toolbox that we could use to get us through rough patches in life? All right. So there are some spiritual practices that you can be doing to support yourself if you're going through a rough patch. The tools that we use are affirmations, spiritual mind treatment, meditation, visioning, journaling. What am I missing? All those great things. Study, spiritual study. All of these things are things that you can do when you're in the middle of a rough patch to move forward, to find peace, to put everything in perspective. We've got all of these tools in our toolbox. And yet, I think I used this analogy all year last year. I was trying to come up with a new one this year, but I haven't come up with one as good as this. We all know that kale is good for us, but it doesn't work unless you get it in your mouth and you swallow it. Okay? So you may know how to meditate, and may know how to pray, and may know how to do affirmations, but if you're not doing it, then nothing's going to happen. Having the best library in the world is wonderful, but if you never take a book off the shelf and read it and open it and read it, it's not going to do anything for you. I've tried to sleep on books so that they would go in through osmosis. I really would like that to happen. It doesn't happen. You need to take the step to use the tools. So, we have another path. The path is this. When you are in the middle of a challenge, when you are in the middle of something going on in your life that is difficult, we have these amazing things called practitioners. And they're here for you. We are here for you. Our ministers and practitioners are here for you. I say this every week. You know, the first Sunday of the month when we do our prayer wall, we're doing that so that each person can have a touch with a practitioner, so that when you hit a rough patch, you are comfortable walking to that back corner after service and saying, "Can you please do a prayer for me?" And it makes a huge difference when you reach out. It makes a huge difference when you are in the middle of something that you can't understand. Because let's face it, when challenges come up in our lives, it feels like they're right in front of our face. And it's moving. So you can't see around it, you can't see through it. It feels like you're in a fog, right? It feels like there are times when we hit a rough patch and we don't understand why it's happening. We don't understand what's going on. But our practitioners can see through the fog for you. The practitioners can, it's as if they're reaching out and holding your hand and guiding you until you can get to the place where you can start to see. So one of the best things that I think you could do for yourself is to have a full session with a practitioner. Is to make a dedication to yourself. You know, so many people made New Year's resolutions, right, and all that stuff. I'm not going to ask you how they're going. I'm not going to ask. I know that I dropped off on my 30-day green smoothie challenge 2 days ago. I got to catch back up. But I made 28 days or something like that. I did 28 days of it. But the practitioners can hold that space for you to know the truth. And so one of the best things you can do for yourself is make a decision to have a practitioner session once a month for 3 months with a practitioner. So that you can go, and if you're in the middle of something, you have a way to connect with someone who can see the truth for you, who can speak their word in prayer for you, who can do some spiritual coaching, and then hold you accountable the next month so that you can take a step forward. So if there's something that's going on for you, if you're in the middle of a rough patch, we're not one-off people all the time. You know, one of the things that I've learned and I'm noticing waking up to in our culture is that we like the quick fix, right? You know why we have such a drug problem in this world, in this country right now? It's because we are not comfortable with pain and discomfort. And so we so quickly go to the meds. We so quickly go to the meds to numb it. But that's the truth with our life. We're not comfortable with pain, except for when it calls for change. Then we'll like suffer, right? That's how bad we don't want to change, right? So, but the thing I think is that if you're experiencing a challenge in your life, let's say financially. Say you're in the middle of a financial challenge. It has taken a while for you to get to this place. Our thoughts and our beliefs create our reality. Okay, so our thoughts of yesterday, those things that we believed through our life have gotten us to this moment. And so it's a process of changing our beliefs, getting a new perspective, gaining a new understanding, getting inspired on something new that needs to settle and be planted within our consciousness enough so that we can start to create something different. And so it's the feeling, it's the inspiration and the desire connected with our willpower to stay clear, right? So the idea that we hold the truth that we are abundant, well, you know, if you look at my bank account all the time, it doesn't look like that. That's what I hear. I'm supported, but where's the money? Show me the beef. You know, like, where is it? What is this? You know? And the idea is that it's in shifting and changing how we hold ourselves and how we hold our relationship to the universe. If you have lived your whole entire life thinking that you are unlovable, if something happened to you in your youth that gave you the idea that you were not worthy, that you were not good enough, and you've carried that through your whole entire life, it's going to take a little bit of work when you wake up to the fact that I am lovable, I am worthy. And how long will it take for you to realize and put that into practice? Because we have all of these habits of thought, and we have all these habits, ideas of ways of being that support the old idea. And so we need to reframe that and retrain that. So working with a practitioner, finding someone who can hold you to it and continually work with you and know the truth for you and pray for you is transformative. And so I think that, yes, being in class, and yes, learning meditation every day, and yes, learning how to pray, and reading the meditations in the back, and the affirmations and the meditations in the back of the Science of Mind are amazing. You should be filling ourselves, pouring something positive in every day. But you can also reach out to a lifeline. It's like that old thing, call your lifeline, right? Call your practitioners. They're here for you. So that's my suggestion on that. All right, so as we come to the end here, I need to... Okay, we're getting there. Okay. All right, so I have often heard that I am perfect, whole, and complete. Really? Only God is perfect. So what, as a human, does this mean for me? Oh, that's a good one. All right, so you are perfect. There is a perfection just to how you are, because we are all divine. So we don't believe that there is God and not God. We believe that everything is divine and everything is God. And so this divine creation is life expressing itself. It's not a person who sits up on a cloud and says, okay, you did good, you get to come in, and oh, you didn't, sorry, escalator down. You know, we don't, that's not the world, that's not the belief system in the universe that we live in. The picture that we live in is that God is that essence, that spirit, that presence that has brought forth all things. And so I often say that everything is in possibility in the mind of God. There's infinite possibilities in the mind of God. But when something happens, it's God ordained. Now that is not the easiest thing to say, because I know that people in this room have experienced great trauma, great challenge, great difficulty, and pain. And so I say this with compassion and with love. What we learn as we move through life is that everything that happens to us reveals something else about us. Everything that we go through pulls forth a new perspective on ourselves, or a new ability, a strength, a knowing, a deeper relationship with the divine. And so all of the challenges and all of the difficulties that we go through are there to express the divine life we've come to live. Now, I say that, again, cautiously, with great love, because no one deserves to be hurt. No one deserves to be injured. No one deserves to be abused. And yet I know I can't not hold the space that there is a divine life that's revealing itself. So I actually, in my meditation, in preparation for this, I pulled out this story that I've shared a number of times that speaks to this a little bit. And I've shared this before, but I knew that this was going to come up. So this is a story of an old Cherokee who was teaching his grandson about life. And he says that a fight's going on inside of me, he said to the boy, and it's a terrible fight, and it's between two wolves. One's evil, he's anger, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego. He continued, the other is good. He's joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. The same fight's going on inside of you and inside every other person too. And the grandson thought about it for a minute and then asked his grandfather, well, which wolf will win? And the grandfather said, the one you feed. So that story always reminds me of the fact that we are living in this matrix of human life that feels good and bad, that feels light and dark. And I think because we are infinite beings that have manifested into a finite realm here for this life adventure that we're on, that's why that exists here. But it's all the divine. It's all God. And so when we look at the situations that we're in, you know, and the lives that we've lived, there is a divine perfection that reveals itself in it, in the art of life. And so you may not know right now how something, either somebody else or something that you've done or something that you've experienced could be perfect, but it is, because it's happened. And so finding a way, again, to go back to what I was saying before about being present in the moment with it, and then deciding where you want to go from there. Because we are co-creators with the divine of our life. And when we are clear and we choose, we can choose to feed the light within us, and we can choose to feed the light in this world at this time. So, all right, so I think I can do one more, and then not be later than I normally am. Okay. Yeah, okay, so I have a couple about, so just know that the other thing that I do with this is I keep all of these and I try and wrap them in the next couple of weeks. Anything else that I'm not going to address, because there's a couple here that I'm not going to address. But so there's two here that are similar. This one says fear and forgiveness in the face of political upheaval and evident evil. And the other one says, woke up this morning realizing that I feel anger and almost hate for the political situation and how it's affecting so many. I'm not a hateful or grudge holder person. How do I reconcile these feelings with my spiritual practice? So those are similar. And it's similar to what I was just talking about. But I think that a lot of people, no matter whether it's because of the political situation or a personal situation that we're going through, I think that there are times when we all wake up to that idea that there's something that we don't like that we see outside of us that you just can't get past, right? There's something that's happening in the world or within you that just is like driving you like to have feelings, right? Anybody else there with that? And so right now for a lot of people I talk to, it's what's going on in politics, and I'm not going to make it about the politics because there's not a right and a wrong here. There just is what's happening. Again, I'm going to bring us back to it's just what's happening. And so this is how things happen. This is what I suggest is this. When there is something that affects you, there's something that's speaking to you in this way, in such a way that just is so bothersome to you, it means that you are being called to step out in a new way in your life or in life itself. Okay? So if there's something that you don't like, that you see outside that you don't like really happening, and it's not something you can put in perspective or you can understand or whatever, you are being called. You are being called by the divine to be a light in the situation. And so what it means is that it's your turn to do your work to see what the truth is, what really is bothering you about that. Okay, so it's not just about they're wrong and they're right, and we're right and they're wrong, and I want them to act differently. It's not that simple. It's not that simple. Life is not black and white. But what we need to do is go in and see what it is that we think is lacking in that situation. One of the things that I see that's happening in the world right now is that there's a disconnect and we're not communicating and listening to one another, right? And so that's really frustrating to me when I get on my Facebook and I put something up and somebody does a little troll, does a little blah, 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 you know, or blah, 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 you know, and then it goes on and on and on, and no one's listening to each other, they're just yelling at each other on Facebook, right? Have you seen that? Where it just feels like, you know, those debates, and so I stopped doing that, you know, because we're not listening to one another. And so for me, what I decided this year was that I got us as a church involved this is just an example of what I'm trying to do, is that we've gotten involved with the Boulder Together movement of all the New Thought churches in San Diego and South Riverside, and we're doing our living room conversations. We did them for 3 months last year, and we're going to do them every other month this year, where after church we come together in safe circles to start to share on hot topics for the year. And it's a really great way in a small group to start to practice listening to one another in a different way. And so I encourage you, if there's something going on, if there's a piece of what's going on in the world politically or whatever that is bothering you to a fact that you are feeling uncomfortable in life, that you can't find any peace within on this, I encourage you to figure out what aspect of it that it's bothering you. And then be more of that in your life. Be more understanding of someone of different philosophy. If you think the issue is that people aren't being kind to one another, then you get to be kind in your life. If you are thinking that if it's a communication issue, then you get to listen better, more, than try and try to understand somebody else's point of view. Because I do realize that this is an exaggerated moment where the differences and the divisiveness is really being glorified almost. But that doesn't mean that we have to be divisive in our lives. Because change starts within us, and it starts within our little circles. And so if each one of us starts to be a little more understanding, starts to have a little bit more compassion, starts to find a little bit more peace, then things start to change. And you will be engaged enough to start to realize that you can still find peace no matter what. I've been in prayer this week for the Vietnamese Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh, who brought so much wisdom and so much love. He's a peace activist through the years, and he's such a great teacher. And so he's in the process of making his transition. But this reminds me of this. He says this. He said, someone asked me, aren't you worried about the state of the world? I allowed myself to breathe, and then I said, what's most important is not to allow your anxiety about what happens in the world to fill your heart. If your heart is filled with anxiety, you will get sick, and you will not be able to help. Right? So we are called to not let that anger and that pain live within us. Because when that lives within us, we're contributing to the problem. We're not part of the solution. Make sense? Okay. All right, so there you have it.
Funny.
I'm not going to do it to you. I won't do it to you. But so this is what I want you to know, is that we are here for you, and this is really helpful in starting to guide as we're putting together the rest of the year. I will wrap the rest of the questions into the next couple of weeks, and I encourage you to step into class. To enter, when we launch the circle, step into a circle, step into class, get into a small group that's going to allow you to continue this dialogue and to continue your spiritual development. Because what I really firmly believe about this philosophy is this. It is taught as change your thinking, change your life. And we know that that's true. I have seen people transform their beliefs about themselves and about God and about life and start to really change their life. But that's just the first step. That's the first step in the science of mind. That's the most superficial place of it. You know, the manifesting, the job and the house and the money and the blah, blah, blah. That's the first step of this. What this is really calling us to do is to develop a deep relationship with the divine of our hearts. Is to live in alignment and in relationship to the divine presence that is the goodness, the vibrance, the health, the wholeness, the abundance of life. Because you deserve it. You are a divine idea in the mind of God made manifest. You were created specifically to be you in your individual glory. And you are deserving of all the goodness of life. And you ought to have it. Because you are God made manifest. And so it is.